Let's talk about an idea that's probably pretty familiar if you've been in church for a while, the priesthood of all believers. But what if that idea is way, way bigger and a whole lot more dramatic than we've been told? What if it's not just about you having personal access to God? What if it's really about your role, your active duty in a cosmic spiritual conflict for the fate of the world?
Okay, so here's how we usually think about it, right? The common view on the left, it means we don't need a human priest to get to God, we can go directly to him. And that's absolutely true, but it's also dramatically undersized. The bigger story, the one the Bible seems to be telling, is that this priesthood is our enlistment in a cosmic reclamation mission. It's about our role in actually helping to govern creation.
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to go back, all the way back to the beginning, to humanity's original job description as it was laid out right there in the book of Genesis.
And it all starts with this idea of the imago Dei, being made in the image of God. Now, in the ancient world, when a king conquered a new territory, he would set up a statue of himself, an image. And that statue declared two things. This place is mine, and this image is my representative. That's the idea here. Being made in God's image wasn't just about having certain qualities. It was a royal commission. It was a job to act as his representatives and to extend his good and perfect rule over all the earth.
This just illustrates that point perfectly. We tend to think of Adam as, a gardener. But get this, the original Hebrew verbs for his work in Eden, the words abad and shamar, are the exact same technical terms used later in the Bible to describe the work of the priests serving and guarding God's holy tabernacle. He wasn't just a gardener, he was a priest-king, serving in the world's first sanctuary, and he was tasked with expanding that holy, ordered space to the rest of the planet.
But of course, that beautiful original plan didn't last. The blueprint was shattered, and it happened through a series of 3 great rebellions that systematically fractured this whole divine plan.
Okay, so first, you have the rebellion in Eden. What happens? Humanity gets kicked out of the sanctuary. Their priestly access to God's presence is cut off. Second, you have the rebellion of the fallen divine beings in Genesis 6, the Watchers, who corrupt humanity, and it gets so bad it leads to the flood. And third, you have the Tower of Babel. This was a united human rebellion that resulted in a totally new and, frankly, catastrophic spiritual world order.
And we really have to zoom in on Babel, because this event wasn't just about God confusing languages. No, it was a divine judgment that completely reorganized the spiritual governance of the entire world. The world was now under new management.
And this verse, right here from Deuteronomy, is basically the decoder key for the spiritual map of the whole Old Testament. It says that God divided up humanity and assigned the nations' borders according to the number of the sons of God. So the big question is, who are these sons of God?
Well, this leads to a concept called the disinheritance. After Babel, God essentially gave the nations over, allotting them to be governed by these lesser divine beings, these sons of God. But they went bad. They became corrupt. And this right here sets up the central conflict for the rest of the Bible. The nations of the world are now living under the authority of hostile, fallen spiritual powers.
So, with that cosmic conflict as the backdrop, we can finally see the decisive turning point of the whole story. Because in this framework, the cross wasn't just a sacrifice for sin. It was a brilliant, strategic, and legal victory over those very powers.
And the strategy behind it all can be summed up in just 4 words. The cross was a trap.
So how was it a trap? Well, the Apostle Paul tells us right here. He says the rulers of this age, and he's not talking about human rulers. He means those corrupt spiritual powers. They had no idea what was going on. They thought they were just eliminating a rival king. They instigated the crucifixion, never realizing that it was the very act that would seal their own defeat. They sprung the trap on themselves. And the result is laid out for us in the book of Colossians. At the cross, these hostile powers were legally disarmed. They were stripped of their authority and put to open public shame. Their authority to rule the nations was officially and judicially revoked. Legally speaking, the war was won right there. So if the legal victory is already won, what happens next? Well, this is where the church comes in. This isn't a time for sitting back. This is the launch of the Great Reclamation Project. It's the launch of a fully authorized divine counter-invasion. And you can see the sequence of authorization so clearly. Step 1, the cross secures the legal victory. Done. Step 2, at his ascension, Jesus declares that all authority, the authority those powers used to have, is now his. Step 3, at Pentecost, his royal priesthood, that's the church, is empowered by the Holy Spirit for the mission. And then Step 4, in the Great Commission, that empowered priesthood is deployed to go and reclaim the nations.
This just reframes everything, doesn't it? Pentecost wasn't just the birthday of the church. It was D-Day. It was the start of the invasion. You see, at Babel, languages were confused and the nations were scattered. At Pentecost, people from all of those scattered nations hear the good news of the kingdom in their own native languages. It's literally Babel in reverse.
Which means the Great Commission isn't just a friendly suggestion to go tell people about Jesus. In this cosmic context, it's an invasion plan. It's a command to go make disciples of the disinherited nations, to march into what has been enemy territory and reclaim people for God's family.
So, what does this mean for us right now? How does this huge epic story translate into our daily lives? What is the practical shape of this, you could say, priestly warfare?
Well, our source material lays out 5 main fronts. First, of course, is proclaiming the gospel. Second is just living a life of holy discipleship. That itself is an act of resistance. Third, we actively demolish the ideological strongholds and false arguments that keep people in bondage. Fourth is priestly intercession and prayer. And fifth, baptism, which in this context is a public declaration that you are officially switching your cosmic loyalties.
And where is all this headed? What's the end game? Well, this passage from Revelation paints the final picture. The mission will succeed. A royal priesthood, ransomed from every single one of those disinherited nations, tribes, and languages, will be gathered together, and they will reign on the renewed earth, finally fulfilling that original commission from the Garden of Eden. So, we're left with this. This reclamation campaign isn't some far-off future event. It's underway right now. We are living in the middle of it, which leaves a very direct, very personal question for every single one of us. What territory will you help reclaim?